Hey guys,
Hello, sir.
good evening. So I'll
Yeah.
be the one leading tonight. We got me, Christianity Unplugged, or Nick. We have Plutarch and Seven Man. Steve Sandman.
Oh, what? Wait. Damn. Nick, have you been doing some research on my history? Are you going to dox me one of these days?
I could.
Oh,
Not that you
hey, I'm
care.
looking forward to it.
I was gonna say
You
at this point, we've come up with enough to dox him. So, yeah, Nick, we might want to get on that.
Yeah. So yeah, who is Steve Sandman?
Hey, let's
Who is
save
this?
that for another stream. Let's do a whole stream on who is Steve Sandman.
Yeah.
Hey, just make it a roast.
Oh, roasts are always fun. We should definitely do that.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, what's the
So-
topic for tonight?
Oh, we're talking about morality and the red pill. Is the red pill amoral or amoral?
Okay, so just little bit of inside baseball for the watchers out there. Nick and I have been blowing up our phones, going back and forth on this, and we jumped in before the stream, and I think we actually managed to sort it all out. So our disagreements out. But so
I don't know. I don't think it's completely out. We're still going to disagree. I mean, I
oh,
guess
we
we're
are going to
mainly in agreement, but we're gonna probably duke it out on this one a little bit.
a little bit. All right, Nick, do you want to
What
open us
is
up?
but what is the red pill, guys?
Okay. Steve, do you want to go or
I mean,
your
to
definition?
to talk about
Well,
morality of the red pill, we got to know what a red pill is, right?
That's correct.
hey,
That's true.
men have been frustrated with reality, probably always, but more lately with divorce and certainty and what's going on and why does this happen to me? How can I get a woman? Because hey, our world has changed with technology and everything, and we don't live in communities. It's hard to find a woman, and once you have a woman, it's hard to keep her. And then there's rebellion and divorce and all that. And I was going, what the fuck is going on? Oh, whoa, hold on. Excuse me. We're in the
You
first
make
8 minutes. Damn.
Not like
We're deleted.
So what do we do now, guys? I screwed up.
We keep going.
Okay. So what is going on? Well, guys sharing observations of women behavior, but they're thinking about what their own behavior is, their own reactions, and they're observing how other men react to the same information. That's the essence where the manosphere started. That's the essence of the red pill observation.
Okay.
so we talked about this. I have a more succinct definition. So it's from the man's perspective, the observation of women and men's behavior around such women and observation. Then men swapping notes, knowledge from other men. Then that knowledge of data ought to awaken a man from a fem-centered or feminist-centered or female-centered, fem-centered or female-centered worldview because of the data.
Okay.
Should they be awakened? Is that a moral statement?
Okay. So first, I'm going to give my definition of the red pill, and then I'm going to answer that question because I have an answer for that. My definition of the red pill is very simple. It comes in two parts. There is red pill, the praxeology. This is the observation stuff that Steve and Nick talked about. But there is also a component that we call, for lack of a better term, the red pill ideology. And that is, what do men do about the data that they receive? What are some of the tools? And we're using ideology in the old sense of the word, where it's just an ideas. It's just a group of ideas that have been studied by men. And that study has actually produced results that say some of these ideas work better than others. Some of these ideas are going to get you different results based on what you're trying to do, etc. So I break the red pill.
Observations lead to beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Beliefs are an ideology. Observations are not.
Fair enough. Yes. You could even say, if you really wanted to, that the act of observing something changes how you act with that, or act around that thing. You could call it the Heisenberg uncertainty principle if you want to get really mathematical about it, which just states that until you observe something, you do not know what the state of it is. So the red pill is the act of observing what women do, and then that changes how you act on the basis of that. Another term for that would be the OODA loop from military, OODA. Orient, observe, detect, act, and then you just go around in a loop. So these are all very, sort of masculine, logical ways of approaching this topic. So Nick, is the red pill amoral?
No.
Okay. I'm going to push back a little bit.
Okay. Is it directly moral? No.
Okay.
Is
So
it tangentially moral? Is there morality surrounding it in some of its observations itself? Sure. The you could say it's generally ideaphora or things indifferent.
okay.
But
So go ahead.
morality is inevitable.
So that's kind of what Steve and I were saying about how when you observe something, it changes how you act.
Yes.
Okay. So what you're saying then is that the praxeology of the red pill, the observations of the red pill themselves, may or may not contain any inherent morality, just as 2 + 2 = 4 contains no inherent morality of itself.
In that sense. Yeah, in that
Right.
sense, even though I would say 2 + 2 itself does contain morality in that you ought to believe the truth. You ought to act as 2 + 2 = 4.
Unless we're dealing with large values of 2, but that's an engineering joke.
Maybe this is a nuance. Maybe you'll split in hairs, but the observation can be amoral, neither moral or immoral. But men were created to seek knowledge and have dominion and understand. So men's desire to make observations of the truth is part of our nature, therefore a moral nature, a moral imperative.
Absolutely.
Right? Is that what you're saying, Nick? It is moral to want to understand and observe.
Right. And also how you make those observations is itself a moral act in relation to the truth. So ought you to follow the right principles in making accurate observations? Ought you to produce truth? Ought you to properly record those observations instead of skew the data?
So what you're saying is principles of science, the fundamental principles of science. Okay.
Are moral.
Can you get to the truth without observing and gathering proper data?
No.
So, therefore, the observation has to be moral to reach the truth. Doesn't that follow?
Let me rephrase, Steve. I think and this is just me asking a question. Is what you're saying is that the act of observation is moral?
Yes.
Okay. So
It
just
has
because
to be moral, otherwise it would you can't get to the truth without observing. So therefore, your act of observing has to be moral because it brings you to the truth.
okay.
Not guaranteed, but it leads you down the path to get to the truth.
No.
Okay. So when you are and we for most of this conversation we are going to be stipulating that humans are imperfect creatures and that we do not have perfect scientific collection methods. We do not have perfect, right, like people skew the data because it benefits them typically financially, but also politically. So we're going to stipulate that that's all true. What we're trying to talk about today is not about the inherent morality of how certain people act around the collection of the data. We're kind of going to say that we generally accept that the data we've gotten thus far in the red pill represents something approximating the truth, because as humans we will only ever, no matter how much energy we spend, we will only ever get to an approximate truth.
Well,
Like,
we don't have a complete sense of knowledge. We're finite
correct.
beings. We are not an infinite being. We're not a perfect being.
I spend my whole life observing what's going on around me, interacting with people, gathering information, emotionally, intellectually, deciding what I'm going to do. I live in the world, therefore I'm observing the world. I'm not just observing red pill stuff. I'm observing everything, and every one of us is observing others and ourselves and coming up with our own conclusions. How can any of that be immoral? Didn't God create us this way?
I would say yes, Nick.
Well, it can be immoral, not directly, but indirectly. If you're a Christian, you're supposed to do everything in faith according to the truth and to the glory of God. Well, if you're not a Christian, then in some sense it's immoral, the gathering of your data, because you're not doing it in faith. It maybe have some sense of the truth, but you're not doing it to the proper goal, so that therefore immoral.
Well, if I'm gaining proper data, isn't my data going
That's
to
that's still a good
give
though.
me the
That's still a good in
opportunity
a
to
sense.
learn the
Yeah.
truth and to learn about God?
Well, I'm thinking here of biologists who have, in the process of collecting data about the biological world, converted to Christianity. It is possible to, in the study of truth, come to a realization that Christianity is more or less the optimal moral system. Okay. But we still have to acknowledge that there are large numbers of people out there who do not subscribe to the Christian moral system.
Right.
And
And so this is where I'll get into this is that, well, a lot of these guys in the RP, and I like them, they're good guys. I like listening to their stuff, but a lot of them don't come from a, purely theistic worldview or a Christian worldview. And in fact, they're somewhat agnostic or atheistic. Everything according to those principles in a pure material universe of chaos and chance has no morality. So everything's immoral. So of course the red pill would be amoral from that particular standpoint.
is so what you're saying? So materialism, you're saying, has no inherent morality? Is that what you're saying?
No, exactly. It just
Okay.
is.
So with God, there is no morality
No,
or
with God, there is
immorality.
morality.
Without God, there is no immoral or
And there is no
or
more.
moral.
Everything is amoral. Yeah, everything is
So
amoral.
it is, as Aleister Crowley said, do what thou wilt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
not.
Okay.
I mean,
Now, God, thou wilt do whatever you want is neither moral or immoral unless you have a theological, God-based foundation.
Okay.
Exactly.
I looked so in Nick's favorite dictionary, I looked up the definition of the word morality. And the definition of the word morality is a system of principles for determining. I'm paraphrasing here because I looked it up last night and I didn't leave it up. But it's a system of principles for determining what actions are good or evil.
Right.
Okay. Is it not possible for a non-Christian moral system to exist that comes to, in this case, many of the same conclusions as the Christian system without actually being a Christian system, because the definition of morality itself is just a series of principles that guide you towards a definition of good and evil. Like, for example, a lot of non-Christian systems agree that killing people is bad, but many of them disagree on what level of self-defense is allowable if some murderer comes after you. Okay. Are those
So
systems inherently immoral, or is the definition of immorality dependent on what the system of morality is that's being discussed?
they don't have a system of morality. They don't have a system of truth. They're
Oh,
parasitic.
good. I'm going to push back on this.
I would. No, in fact, they have
Okay,
no possibility of logic because everything is material and changing. There is no
okay.
universal
No, I'm not
abstract.
talking about materialists here specifically. I'm thinking about other
Well,
religions.
I'm still going
I
to
would
push
say, yeah,
back on
they
this.
would still have some semblance of truth and moralism, but it would be
Okay.
twisted and parasitic on the truth.
Okay, well, maybe it's not twisted. Let's just, I'm going to say this is not a black and white. It's not a yes or no. It's a shades of gray. It's a move closer to the truth. You can have some truths, but not the total truth. And let's just go back to the basis of Western civilization. Plato, Aristotle, Socrates.
Mhm.
They had a moral framework. Was it perfect? No.
Oh,
Was it discussed in Christianity by the church fathers and
yes.
perfected, and they gleaned things out of that? Yes. But they
Mhm.
had a non Christian morality without Christianity.
Without adhering to Christianity.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
Because what weren't Plato? Didn't those guys, if I remember my history, weren't they before Christianity got to Greece?
I mean, before for what?
Before Christianity got to Greece, wasn't
Oh,
wasn't Socrates like 100 years uh,
before Christ.
before
He's
Christ?
like
Yeah.
no, he's way more. He's like 400 or 500 somewhere around there. Because
Okay.
then Plato and Aristotle. And Aristotle was a tutor to Alexander the Great. So yeah, and,
Okay. So they
right.
arrived at a moral system, a system of morality with, and these are famous scholars of logic and reason, and they used logic and reason to arrive at a system of morality. Now, that was
Sure.
not a Christian morality, but I would argue, and this is a large chunk of what Nick and I were going back and forth on this weekend, is thank you, Steve. You did it. You set us up. Is I actually went and looked this up. It's John 1:1. The Greek does not use the term ethos, it uses the term logos. So now in King James, it translates as the word, logos translates as word, but another definition for it in the Greek is reason. So you could read that same sentence as
Yeah.
the reason, in the beginning there was reason, and the reason was with God, and the reason was God, and that would also be a valid translation of the Greek. Am I off base here?
Absolutely.
It could
Yes.
be I would say it's incomplete, but it's true.
Well,
So
yes, it's
I
incomplete
wouldn't hone it down as
because
wouldn't hone it down to simply logic or reason as like Gordon Clark did, a Presbyterian
no,
apologist philosopher.
uh,
But I
the
would say
word
it wouldn't
logos,
exclude that. It wouldn't exclude that for sure.
the word logos has such vast meaning.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's
that's
not. It's
true.
not. It's not contained in reason. It's order. It's the essence of everything that's true. It's the order of the universe. It's
Hmm.
it's a hierarchy. Okay, if you go back to the Greek definition, this might be one of the words that takes pages to define, because this has been debated
Yeah.
for centuries. No, you can't. There is no English word
Mhm.
that captures the quantity of information contained in the meaning of the word logos.
Right. And there's also a whole Greek history, and there's even a Jewish philosophical history. I think it was like Philo who talked about the logos as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that actually gets to the point, because I agree with that. I this weekend was a dive down the rabbit hole of the word logos, and
And we struggle with the temporal and the eternal aspect. So there's some
yeah, there was some
miscommunication.
miscommunication. I was speaking temporally, and Nick was on the eternal aspects of it. So I think
What do you
we got
mean
that.
the
Wait a
logos
minute.
precedes at the I'm
Were
like
you
in the
guys
Godhead.
having
No, it's all he.
were you guys having a
Yeah.
disagreement?
Yeah,
A little bit.
somewhat, somewhat. Then we
Oh,
realize, oh, we're
and you're
talking in
still
a different
friends?
sense. Yeah. Well, sometimes you talk
And
things
did
through,
you
and like,
think
oh wait,
either
you're
one
using
of
this
you
word in
was
this sense,
wrong
and
for a
I'm using
time?
this word in this sense.
Well, yeah. What ended up happening was we
Oh.
talked it through, and we
They're
realized
talking
that
past each other.
yeah, that we were using. Yeah, exactly. We were talking past each
So
other.
Yeah.
is it possible to say somebody is wrong and then explain how you see it and how they see it, and actually you're actually more in agreement and it's just a misunderstanding, but you don't get all butthurt about it because you're
No.
debating a
No.
topic?
Well, that's kind of how philosophy works. Is you think one person's wrong, then you define the terms, and you realize, oh, well, you were using this. I had a different conception of the sense of the word that you're using, and they had a different conception of the sense, and you're in miscommunication because you're both finite beings, and you can't read each other's minds. So,
Hey,
Right.
isn't this beauty about how men debate things?
yeah,
We can get all heated, and then we realize, oh, okay, we hashed that out. Yeah, okay, we're not very far apart. Now we reach consensus, and damn, I learned something in this process.
Well, I think I did
I
most of the
love
learning,
that
but
kind of stuff.
well, I was talking about theology proper, and he was focused on another.
yeah, typical me. I'm much more focused on sort of a practical applications of these terms, and how they show up in. I mean, I actually ended up saying how we reached the consensus, guys. What I ended up saying, I ended up saying something like, "You do realize I've bounded myself temporally to the past 30 years," and then it was like, "Oh, okay, you're having a conversation about how humans perceive this stuff, and deal with it," and then it was just like, "Oh, okay, we actually do agree."
And I was talking about how God's righteousness and knowledge are united in the Godhead, and not at odds or subordinated to one another.
Which I didn't disagree with. I was
Right.
I was talking about how finite human beings use this stuff, and need to interact with it because they are finite.
Right.
So if you guys want to know that, like, it can be done, but the core point is that neither of us lost our heads, lost our cool. I mean, Elena will tell you that I burned her ears off, talking about this stuff because I need a rubber duck to talk to. But like, I never got angry at Nick. This was always for me at least, it was always a very cerebral discussion. I had a whole browser full of tabs open trying to define stuff, and like
smashing my head. It's like he grew up in the church. He knows this. Why am I having this conversation? Like, oh, we speaking past each other.
So please do take this as sort of like good news that men can sort things out without resorting to beating each other with sticks. Anyway, we have gotten off track.
Okay.
I mean, as fun as that was, we have gotten off track.
Well, it's kind of relates. Because morality, we're always disagreeing with someone else. And in our mind, or what we tell others is, you don't agree with my truth, therefore you're immoral, or you are bad faith.
Which is, it's
not right.
It's horrific. That mindset actually gives you the problem that we have today throughout our society.
Purity test, right? Purity test, right?
Well, actually, I would say that I thought about this even more, and I'm going to say this. That's abomination, because you are taking upon yourself the role of God to define the absolute true morality as how you define it. And I think all of these people who are out here trying to redefine these moralities around their political worldviews are committing an abomination. But I also think that some of the stuff that the moral majority did in the 90s, where they tried to basically say, and this is why I concern myself so much with this definition of morality. If you're following a moral system, then immorality just means that it is something in violation of that system. Because the Christian moral majority tried to, particularly in the 90s, codify into law Christian morality, and they ended up blowing up the church for doing it, because other people looked around and said, yeah, that's great, but that's not my morality. And how can you claim to be able to impose your morality on my moral system that comes from this other religion, which is why during the 90s you kept seeing all these complaints about the separation of church and state, and still do today.
Well, I'll actually push back. I think we should have a Christian system that imposes morality on the people.
Well,
okay,
that's a different discussion that I'm trying to have.
I think we actually have a religious system that is currently imposing morality on the people, whether they want to recognize it or not.
No, I agree with you there. I'm not, I'm just saying that was what the Christians blew themselves up on in the 90s, was trying to do that by changing the definition. Yeah.
Let me introduce a word. Do you guys know the word calumny?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is calumny?
Calumny or calumny?
Calumny.
Calumny.
I'm gonna look it up. Calumny.
Yeah, look it up.
Not calamity.
This is
not
kind
calamity.
of a Catholic.
Okay.
It's a word that Catholics use. It's a sin, and I think you guys will agree that this is what's happening a lot of the time. When you disagree with somebody, it's basically throwing somebody under the bus.
Oh, so like slander or libel.
Yes, but it encompasses both of those, and it's a bit more encompassing.
The definition I have here just says a false statement maliciously made to injure another person's reputation, which includes all of that.
Yeah, okay, so we're in disagreement. You're not arguing with my statement, you're going to make a malicious statement to reduce my reputation, to attack my reputation. That's calumny. Maybe it's not quite as bad as slander, but you won't debate with me directly. So you will impute my reputation.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, this is commonly done by women towards their ex-husband in divorce court. Calumny. That's the plan.
Okay. So what I was trying to get at is, just because, but okay, Nick, personally, I don't disagree with the concept of imposing Christianity as a moral system on the moral system of Christianity. And I would even argue that much of our current legal system is based on Western Christian morality. Okay.
Much of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we agree on that. Where I think that they sort of lost the plot a little bit was on trying to say that only Christian morality could be accepted as a moral base now that can work in a country with a homogenous society that already agrees on all of those things, but we don't love it or hate it. We don't have that here. And so some effort has to be made by the majority to understand that the minority is not going to necessarily accept that. And so we're going to end up with a system of laws that kind of is the union, to use a math term, of the various major morality systems, and that there's going to be disagreements over the edges. And I'm thinking about the one that comes to mind is Islam in this country.
Oh, see, they don't care. They just impose their morality.
Well, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I say everybody ultimately imposes morality. Just which morality do you want imposed?
That brings up the concept. When it's a union or an amalgamation, on the fringes, the rules end up getting imposed on people on the fringes, and kind of imposed on everybody because it doesn't fit their ideology, whether it be Christian or Jewish or Islam or Buddhist. You're you're conforming everybody to the same, which doesn't fit anyone. So you're kind of imposing a union.
Right. And so what I'm saying is
kind of like a Venn diagram, right?
Yeah. Well, but so what I'm saying is that this is where, to me at least, the Christian concept of grace steps in. We have to understand that there are going to be people who do not agree with what has been imposed. Now, I like the fact that Christianity has the concept of grace, because I know so many religions that don't. Islam, for one. Sorry, guys. If that gets me canceled, that gets me canceled for saying it, because that graciousness allows you to make up for that the edges. It allows you to say, look, okay, we can agree on the basic concepts of the moral system that we're going to use. And, okay, Sharia law, you can cut off their hands if they steal. Yeah, okay, we're not going to do that. We're just going to throw them in jail. So you don't get to have full Sharia. Sorry, guys, that's just the way this works here. Okay. And, there are sects of Christianity for whom I'm thinking, of course, to the more abomination sides of Christianity, where they're going to look at a bunch of the stuff that Nick, Steve, and I all agree on as being immoral, and they're going to say, "What's your problem? That's not immoral. That's just humanity being humanity." And then we, instead of saying "off with your head," need to come in with a little bit of logic and start dismantling their position. Because I'm thinking here of guys like Andrew Wilson or Hitchens, who have absolutely dismantled some of these horrible, horrible things, but they never do it from a position of moral authority. They do it from a position of reason, basically saying your moral position is unreasonable. Here's why.
I love it when that happens, because all too often, well, Jerry Falwell and the moral majority just thumped their Bible and said, well, God wants us to do that. But they didn't convince anybody. They just tried to impose their beliefs.
Yes.
And it wasn't, they didn't even use reason or logic to say why what they were saying was true or the proper thing to do. And I think it failed because of that.
That's my belief looking backwards, is because I can come up with a very rational series of reasoning steps about why murder is very, very bad. And but I can actually turn around and prove that murder is bad by proving that self-defense is a moral good, is a logical good. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, that's all true. But thinking back to the moral majority and that movement, which was what? That was in the Ronald Reagan era, right?
It was late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. So I would say that a lot of the things those guys believed in and wanted, I would agree with. Not everything, but most of it. But they didn't convince anybody based on reason. And that, I think that was a downfall. So, okay, we can go from there. But remember, this is our topic tonight is the red pill amoral or moral? And so I think we need to bring this discussion back to talking about
we're getting cut off. Darn it.
Okay. Okay. So but the red pill itself, how did it come into existence? Was there a morality behind it?
Oh, Steve, you're the most versed in the history of the red pill.
I don't think so. I think things just happen by providence. You know, certain historical events happen, occurrences happen, and then men try to figure it out. Just like you know, it could have been an immoral trigger or a moral action or whatever happened. Just look at World War II. We're still trying to figure out who was doing what for what reason and observing it from passage of time.
Oh, okay.
Well, now we have that same ability to observe why this phenomena, the manosphere, which evolved into the red pill, the PUAs, and the MGTOWs. Why did this happen? Well, it was just time.
Well, I mean, there were other cultural things that led up to it, and those have been roundly discussed by other streams. So I'm not going to get into this. The question I have for both of you is: can an immoral act lead to a moral act? And to give an example, if a woman decides that she's going to get divorced because she wants to go she wants to go get new dudes, is that a moral or an immoral choice? Okay.
It's immoral.
Okay. But now this is happening to an entire group of men. That group of men come together on in a forum. I'm not going to specify what kind of forum because it doesn't matter. And they start sharing notes and they go, wait a minute. you mean your ex-wife did the same thing? And then they look over at the other guy and they go, wait, she did the same thing to you too. And they start building this observational set of data about all these women doing this. And then they start to see patterns and trends. And then they start to go, okay, well, what can we change to stop this? Right?
Okay, so I would say from the very fact that they got together, there's a problem. They sought a solution is generally a good. The fact that they want to help men with women generally is good. There can be, just wanting to sleep around. Sure, I would say that's immoral. But the idea to inform men and interpret data is itself a moral act, not to turn a blind eye to the data. That is actually immoral.
Interesting. So what you're saying is that the men who reject the data are actually committing an immorality, for lack of a better phrase, because
they're rejecting truth.
Ooh. Well, that's an idea. I'm sure that people are going to hate you for saying that, and I do mean that quite literally.
Yeah. It's immoral to reject the truth. It's immoral to reject the truth, the data of the red pill.
Sorry, my brain has to process that because I've never considered that.
Okay. But doesn't God bring good out of evil?
Yes. So the data that they have is the good data that came from evil. Just
So
like
you
how
can-
we can better understand babies in the womb and all sorts of other problems with women
So, yeah,
and based on abortion. It's a very wicked thing.
So
I would
you
consider it
can
killing a baby, but you
observe.
can gather data from that regardless. It's terrible, but you can get data. Yeah.
So you can observe the sinful activity of men. Notice I say men.
Yeah,
first,
men can do sinful activity.
and women.
yes.
You can notice and observe that, and by that observation, you can use that for a moral good. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, this is why I think it was important to establish
Wouldn't the
early
Bible
on.
say something about that? Doesn't the Bible say something about that in Genesis with Joseph and his brothers?
Yeah, I think it does. Well, but this is why I think it was so important to establish early on that the mere act of observing is going to change how you interact with the source of that data. So in this case, the source would be those immoral acts that those women did. That's creates the divorce rate, right? Okay.
Right.
So, but just knowing that that women behave in a certain way, you're going to go, oh, wait a minute. This means that this whole idea doesn't work. We've got to go over here and do this or try something else. You probably don't know what you should try the first time you're doing it. Okay.
Hey, I want to label this concept.
Okay.
Schrodinger's Christian.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts my head and my heart.
You want to explain that, Steve? Because I'm not sure everyone in our audience understands that.
Oh, Schrodinger's cat. It's an old analogy, and it's used like you throw a cat in a box with a radioactive isotope,
poison.
and you don't know whether or poison, and you don't know whether the cat is dead or alive, and it could be both until you open the box and then you find out. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that is Schrodinger's cat. That is.
So, okay, something happens, the box is closed. You don't know whether it's right or wrong. You don't know whether it's good or bad, but that's where the woo-woo, God's woo-woo happens. And God can bring good out of evil intentions. We just don't know what the outcome is until we open the box. And maybe that's free will as well. You know, that's the predetermination, predestination that God can bring good out of it. He knows what the outcome is going to be, but he's offering you choices. And you get to make the choice. Yeah, okay, he may know what you're going to choose. Your choice is still valid and real in the moment.
We were talking about this before the stream, and I termed this God has perfect forward knowledge. He knows the outcome of every decision that will ever be made by any living being in this universe that acts on the physical world. I'm not going to go down the sidetrack of what do you do about a purely physical system where there is no intentional action being taken, which is a interesting philosophical sidetrack, but does not help us today. So the point being is that just because God knows what you're going to choose doesn't and has perfect forward knowledge of what all of those outcomes will be of all your choices doesn't mean he's taking away your choice. It just means that he has something that we humans do not. Humans do not have perfect forward knowledge, and we never will. Ever.
And of course, I would go further than Steve and Plutarch here, but because I'm a reformed, Calvinist. But yeah, I have no problem with what he has said so far. I'll just say it goes further than that. Okay.
Okay, but so our working theory now is that, Nick, that the act of observing and the act of collecting data in the red pill is a moral good.
Yes.
And we acknowledge that moral good is going to produce actions by the observers. And that we're now going, yes, and that now we're going to share the results of our different, call them experiments on women, for what potential reactions to that can help alter that data.
Right. So I think in one of my notes I says but the red pill, so it has a morality. It helps men, aims to help men achieve certain ends based on data observations, etc. But these actions or advice or prescriptions, as some would say, always carry a morality. It is not wrong to say that this helps a man get laid, but the person getting laid is doing immoral action. He could be married, so it could be good, or it could be, use it in a different way. So you can look at some of the commandments of food and the iron rules and their prescriptions. I would say some of them are good, some of them are immoral.
So I can use this data, red pill. I can go down the PUA path, use it to sleep with a lot of women.
Good.
Or I can learn that same data, similar, and use it to find a wife and use it to understand her better.
Correct.
And keep her as my wife and still get my sexual appetite fulfilled in my wife.
Correct.
And hopefully have children with her and hopefully stay married to her for my wait. Isn't there something about until death do us part?
That was in the vows that I said.
Use my knowledge of the red pill to perpetuate this ideal of until death do us part?
No.
Not only can you, gentlemen, that is what I did and what I continue to do with my wife. I learned the data. I learned the tools. And I had a Christian morality that said some of these tools you are not going to use.
Right.
But you had better believe, folks, that I did use a bunch of red pill tools, and I still do. And you want to know the really cool thing? She loves it.
Yeah. She does a lot of that stuff on her Saturday morning show, doesn't
She does.
Here's a red pill thing I learned. Women like to be touched. If you take your hand, okay, Elena has long hair. You grab her hair, and you can move her head around, and you can kiss her. Or you
Done
take
that.
your hand and you put it on her face like that.
Mm-hmm.
A woman will absolutely melt.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, this is Keno. This is Keno. This is taught in the pickup community.
Yep.
This works.
Yep.
And you can tell your wife,
Generally, if she has
hey,
some
I'm
desire for
gonna
you to begin
do
with.
this to you. Well, yeah. But you
Yeah.
can tell her, I'm gonna do this to you, and it's gonna feel good. And she'll go, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you do it, and it'll still work.
Yes, it will.
Still work.
It
doesn't matter if she knows it. Oh, you're doing that thing to me. Oh, I love that.
We Elena and I talk regularly, quite frequently, about red pill stuff because she also has shows in this space, and I have laid bare all of the magic, quote unquote, right? All of the secrets, and I still use them because you know what? She still does shit tests, and I still have to respond to them. Just because she knows that it's a shit test doesn't stop her. Now, after I respond correctly, we get a nice little laugh out of it, and we've actually turned this into a little game we play with each other that helps keep the relationship, alive and going. But am I using those dirty pickup artist tricks? Hell yes, and I'm doing it gladly. Why? Because we've been married 8 years and we still love each other. We're still together. We're still in this thing. She's still very jealous of me, and I'm very jealous of her, right? To use a term that can be misused, but
Oh, that's good.
it works. And I want to say this: just because a tool can be used for immorality does not mean the tool is immoral. I said this at the end of our last ETN, and I want to say it again because I think it's a great point.
Mhm.
A young person can pick up a long range hole puncher and go start ending lives in a school, and another person can pick up a long range hole puncher and go end that person. The tool was not the moral actor. The long range hole puncher was not the moral actor. We say that the first person was evil and that the second person was good for stopping them.
Didn't we just kind of see this played out in the recent Trump incident?
You saw exactly that play out.
Right.
Hey, some guy shot that kid, right? And we don't look at the guy who shot the kid and say, "Oh, he's evil for shooting the kid." Well, some people do, but I question their morality anyway. But
Right.
that's exactly. I don't hold the gun responsible, and Trump doesn't either.
No, really, no. So far, no one has brought up the immorality of the weapons in this story. I'm sure it will come up.
Oh,
but so far it hasn't.
Huh.
Okay, I want to change the focus of this.
Okay.
We're in about an hour now. So would the world be okay? Here's the question. Here's how I'm going to change the focus. Would the world or the U.S. or whatever you want to determine be better off if the red pill did not exist? The knowledge of the red pill, these Christian Christ pill guys, the anti-red pillars, if they could just ask God, grant me a wish to make this knowledge just poof out of existence, would the world be
No.
better off?
No, because, well, you're making a moral, that's a moral question. What is better according to what morality? But if you're a Christian, say you have a certain morality, right? So let's presuppose the Christian morality. Would Christians be better off? Would the United States or the world be Christian world be better off without the red pill? I would say no, because you're ignoring God's truth.
I'm going to agree with that. And I would go so far as to say that in order to claim that the red pill needs to disappear, because I'm going to piggyback off what Nick said, because you are now trying to say that some truth is basically so corrosive that it should never be known, so corrupting that it should never be known. You are actually trying to specifically say that God's word, that God's creation, that something is so corrupted that you cannot be allowed to know it. I think that is, personally, you guys can disagree, I think that is abomination.
I agree. Well, it
You know,
reminds me of the one time I got in trouble for reading Leviticus 18. It talks about nakedness and incest and bestiality and homosexuality and all sorts of things. And I think the most offensive thing, the church got so offended. I think the most offensive thing that I did was read the text.
what? The Bible offends
The-
Christians?
Oh, yeah.
all day long, large chunks of it.
So does the red pill offend Christians?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the Christians' fault. They need to repent.
Well, gee,
Wow.
we could throw out the red pill, and we could throw out these uncomfortable parts of the Bible, and then the Christians would feel more comfortable. Wouldn't this be the nice thing to do?
Oh, you mean like a tame, cucked church, basically, that gets rid of all everybody. Let's just be nice to each other. Everybody gets along. Nobody condemns anyone except those masculine, patriarchal, yeah, men. Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
Oh,
Well, can't we all gather around the campfire and sing Kumbaya?
Well, Steve, what you're describing reminds me of a Bible study that I did as a teenager with a group of people. They were Anglican, Episcopalian aligned, and the guy who was leading it, he called it reading between the brackets, because in the Book of Common Prayer, there's all these, the Book of Common Prayer, there's all these different verses and whatnot, but they had put brackets around the parts of the word that you were not supposed to read.
Oh, what? What? The Presbyterians do that?
I don't know if the
Damn,
Presbyterians
what?
use
They
BCE.
do.
You know what?
They wouldn't admit it. They would not outright admit it, but they do so in practice.
You know what?
I
the
think that's all
Catholics do?
churches.
When it comes to Ephesians 5, okay, the Catholics, the Lutherans, these liturgical churches have a set cycle of readings. So it's on like a 3-year cycle for the gospel, the epistles, the Old Testament, and it's all linked together. But you know what happens when things like Ephesians 5 come up? They give an alternative reading. You don't have to read that one.
They might as well just
you
bracket
guys-
it in Ephesians 5 and
Nick
said,
is
don't read this.
laughing. I thought Nick would be shocked.
Not shocked. I lived through it. Yeah, I lived through alternative reading or reinterpretation.
I think all churches do this to some extent these days. I can't speak for churches before I was born, but every church I've been in has done some form of this, where there are certain books or passages that they just won't touch. The Book of Common Prayer formalized it with their whole "don't read this part in the brackets" thing, but churches do that in practice everywhere. I haven't been to one that didn't.
So, here's the interesting thing I'll point out. Oh, the Presbyterians get it right. No, the Catholics get it right. Yeah. Well, maybe we can debate that. But the point is, they're all doing the same shit.
Right.
Throwing out or avoiding these things that might perturb or upset the people. And so, okay, let me bring this back to the red pill. You anti-red pill people, whether you're of the Christian variety or the secular or wherever you're a feminist, whatever you're attacking this, if you throw out the red pill, there are other truths that you're throwing out. And I'm going to call that unintended consequences.
Are you talking about throwing the baby out with the bathwater?
Yes, but if you're throwing out truth, you don't know what other tied on ancillary truths you're throwing out. And
well, okay, if we're throwing out related truths, what else are we throwing out? Related actions. And I think that's what they're actually trying to do. They don't want men to act in a certain way, and so they tell themselves, well, if I could just get rid of this pesky truth, men wouldn't know, and then they wouldn't act in this way that I don't like. But the problem with that is you're going to throw away actions you do like. Go ahead.
You don't know, because you're going to throw away this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's related to this other thing and this other thing. And now you can't predict what's going to happen. Because remember, we all have free will. You can't predict the outcome. When you make this little change, what other implications does it have? Might not be the outcome you want.
Steve, did you just say did you just say that the anti-red pillars and the feminists all believe they have perfect forward knowledge to be able to predict the results of their actions?
No, you said that, but
is that what they're claiming?
Yes, I think you extrapolated from what I was saying into the implications, which I would agree with.
Okay, so they are saying that they are like God, that they can know the full effect of their removal of truth.
Seems self-evident.
That is abomination.
Yeah, I don't know if they would say that, but maybe.
Well, okay.
I'll go.
That's what they're doing in practice. Is kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Hey,
yeah,
you know what? A form of hubris. We are exploring ideas here, and our assumptions and implications and the things we talk about. Do we agree with them even when we say them? Do we agree 100%? No.
Why not?
We're trying to flesh this out and determine something as we're talking about it. And, I can say something and then something else will come up and I'll change my opinion. I don't know, but I want you guys, the listeners, to think along with us, because we don't have all the answers. It's kind of an open discussion debate.
But this is the problem, though, with a lot of the church. It's an inherent hypocritical biblicist worldview. They don't want to take what's out there in nature and incorporate it into their understanding of the world. A lot of them don't view natural law, what's out in nature, as truth. And they don't want to, they'll cherry pick scripture, they'll ignore parts of scripture, but then they don't want to make deductions from the whole corpus of scripture. They don't want to use their mind. They don't want to reflect God in their being, which is a problem because God is a God of truth. And for Christians, we're made in his image. We're to be people of truth, to pursue truth in what he has created and revealed to us in Scripture. So, Scripture and nature. And so, when we look at nature, we must eschew like a composition or a genetic fallacy. We shouldn't, as if like a car is bad because let it suppose the inventor was supposedly greedy and made it to make money and put the horse and buggy out of business.
That sounds like
Like
a very communist way of thinking there.
or the smartphone must be avoided because it's invented by a supposedly wicked man and many use it for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, that is a composition fallacy because, well, that's a genetic fallacy. A composition fallacy would be saying, well, because this one person uses this tool for a nefarious act. Let's say, for example, cell phones are very popular with a certain sect of Islam, shall we say, as a tool for remote action.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So the answer, so the composition fallacy would say, well, because they did a bad thing with it, we have to, the cell phone is inherently evil. Okay, so what about all the good work that has been done with cell phones? What about all the lives that have been saved by the ability to just have a phone right there, and you get in a crash or something, and you call an ambulance? Is that evil too?
And so this is where it can become a sticking point. This information can help save men's lives and not unalive themselves. It can help awaken them to the truth where the church has hypocritically and has failed. They have the truth, they have access to this, but they reject it with these Christ pillars and all this other stuff.
You know what? Okay. For me, my belief is the family is the foundation of society and civilization. And the family, okay, I'm a Catholic. The family is the domestic church. It's got the father as the head, and it's a hierarchy, and the mother, and raising children up in a godly way. There's a hierarchy. The church is a hierarchy. It's a bigger group of believers,
right?
But there also is a hierarchy. This is the foundation of society, and it is so essential that children have access to their father and their mother throughout their entire upbringing. You should not ever give a woman the authority and the ability to separate the children from their father, because he's their head. He's cutting off the head. This is a big problem in our society. This is the essence of where our society is going to fail. Therefore, the red pill knowledge should be used to sustain marriages, to establish a marriage between a husband and a wife. The red pill knowledge says promiscuity is bad. And people, both men and women, are most apt to stay together when they have a low body count when they get married. And they should get married young, because there is no need for a woman to waste her time in college and incur all kinds of debt for really a job that just a career. Give me a break. It's a job, and now she's a debt slave. That's not a good idea.
And she wasted the best years of her fertility.
Yes, she does.
Exactly. Is this good for society? No. So we need to use this red pill knowledge to affirm and support marriage from its inception through the entire child rearing years and into old age. I think the red pill knowledge is essential to combat the feminism, the no fault divorce, and all these corrupt things that are intending to destroy the family. Who
Well,
else? Where else is the knowledge coming from?
Nick,
Where
or
else is
sorry,
the push? Is the is the church pushing against these things? Okay, now
Steve.
I'm done.
Okay, Steve, I want to add to that because we're seeing this strain of attack against the red pill for
There we
being
go.
immoral. But I'm thinking about the episode we did where I was going after Tim Pool. And Tim Pool is sitting here lamenting how there's just not enough strong men in the world and we need to make more strong men. And I'm sitting here and in the same episode he goes, but the red pill, they're just out there, you know, telling men not to do this and not to do that. And I'm like, and they should be, you know, you should not listen to them because they're telling you to do bad things. And I'm sitting here going, so you want to tear down the only group of men out there who is trying to build the strong men that you're so desperate for, you fool.
That's in my notes.
So this is why we spent so much time on the sophistry aspect of this, is because with sophistry I can say anything, and that's what Tim Pool did. He said anything and it sounds all good to everybody, but when you cast even the slightest glance of reason at it, you realize that it's hysterical for how dumb it is to say that we have to destroy the only group of men out there trying to make better men, but we really, 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 really need, you know, stronger men. Come on. And so,
and the red pill exists, and in this space exists because the church and society failed men, hates men, and emasculates men.
yes.
And yet, what is the church doing? They're ignoring the truth because of its, you know, its source in a sense. But ignoring it will not help them. They're actually, you know, furthering the problem, rebelling against the God of truth that's revealed in the Bible and in nature. And they're destroying the only tool and group of men that are actually trying to do something, really.
Right. And they're doing it because they're afraid of what that data means. Going back to what you were saying earlier on, Nick, about how an immoral action results in a data set that we can then choose to do something moral with. They're trying to say that because this data says, basically shines a light on how far the church has fallen in its ability to, you know, impress upon women the need to stay chaste, let's say, it has created this situation where all of a sudden men are finding out that, you know, their wives are cheating on them and all of this stuff. And the church is just sitting there, you know, blah, blah, we don't know what to do with that. Well, and so your answer is what? Hide the truth because somebody might find out that you guys fucked up.
So have you guys ever had any basic fire suppression, firefighting, fire extinguisher training?
Yeah, fire extinguisher training. It was required where I worked when I was young.
Okay. So, let's say there's a big fire. Oh, campfire, whatever. The fire comes from the bottom. All the fuel is the broken marriages, the promiscuity, the crap. And you see the flames, and oh my God, these flames. And you take your fire extinguisher because you don't like the flames, and you aim it at the flames. Is it going to go out?
Nope.
Or is the fire going to continue to maybe intensify?
Yes.
So my analogy is, yeah, oh, you anti-red pillars. Yeah, blow at the flames all you want. It's not going to change. And the fire is going to continue to grow because you have not removed the fuel supply. You're not addressing the core of the problem because you don't want to go there.
Okay. So, Nick, how would you sum this up? Because you hit me with one right before we started that sent me for a loop. Um, the question is the red pill amoral or is it moral? And if it is moral, what kind of morality is it?
I would say, it's not in. It's the red pill is indirectly moral, right? Has a morality, um, but the morality that it exists for good, and yet with your Christian morals, it exists for good in the eyes of God, that He'd be well pleased with. Not just a societal good, but it can be used for His glory.
So you can have a red pill and Christian marriage.
Exactly, and that's good.
Now, we would also agree
is
that the red pill can have immoral actors using it.
Yes,
Okay, but
but the data in itself is a good thing to gather, and you should have a decision, a moral decision for that data, and you're gathering that data for a purpose to begin with.
Oh, okay, so, but does the fact that there exist people who use that data for immoral ends make the red pill immoral?
No, and that's a fallacy, isn't it?
It's a composition fallacy.
Yeah, of course. Okay, is sex good?
Yes. I think so.
Yes, absolutely. Sex is good. It's designed by God for the procreation of the species to unite a man and a woman in a one man, one woman relationship. Now, can you use sex wrongly?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's done all the time. And then people rationalize it and they do it regardless, but they cope and they rationalize and whatever. So, red pill, okay, it's maybe I don't know if it's a good analogy, but red pill can be good. Can be used for a good purpose, and if it's truth, it is truth established by God, moral, but it still can be used for bad purposes.
True.
Am I wrong here, Nick?
No.
So a red pill marriage actually disproves the thesis of the anti-red pill, because we are using, at least in my marriage, I use much of the data and even many of the tools to support and feed my marriage. And I think it's very hard to argue that that's an immoral thing, particularly from a Christian worldview. Like Christians want marriages to be fed. They want marriages to succeed, right?
And of course, you interpret it through, your through the Word of God as well. You don't throw your morality out, and that way you can actually sort out the data and say, okay, well, to achieve this end, this is why I don't understand the amorality of the red pill, and yet they don't want to suggest certain GRAPE to achieve certain results in certain societies where it is kind of legal.
Right. No, I hear you. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But don't throw your morality out when interpreting the red pill data.
Well, your morality can be used.
Who does actually? Nobody.
Right. Just because, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Just because somebody doesn't have a Christian morality doesn't mean that they aren't using a moral framework to decide what to do with the red pill. They are. And this is why I separate the red pill into praxeology and ideology, because that collection of data, I mean, I think you've made an argument that collection of data is an inherent moral good, and it's very difficult for it to not be. You could come up with some situation, I guess, but you're stretching, So what you're saying is that the red pill praxeology is an inherently moral good, and the red pill ideology is really dependent on the user of it to apply their morality to use it and figure out what to do with that praxeology.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Makes sense to me.
God has created all of us unique with certain skills and benefits and attributes that are specific to me. Could be strength, could be intellect, could be endurance, whatever. I can use those for my good and the good of others, or I can use those for evil. Is the red pill knowledge any different than anything else in the world?
No. Like medical knowledge, right?
You can use medical
Right.
knowledge for good or evil too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
And in fact, you get better medical knowledge sometimes after it has been used for evil purposes.
that's true. Sad, tragic,
It's
but
sad, but
true.
true. Right. Doesn't make the data set evil. No. In fact, it's knowledge. It's good.
Oh, I can hear, I can hear some heads spinning across the internet tonight over this one, and I mean, we have a lot of people in from Nick's
It's not
Twitter,
going to be
so
many. It's not really not going to be many, because I don't think very many people are going to stick with us till the end on this stream. Because man, we were dry tonight.
oh, we were very dry. No clip. We had
Oh,
no clips. No clips.
was it Sahara Desert dry or Desert Valley dry?
Ooh. I don't know, Nick. Do we have to go for Sahara dry here?
Well, I don't know.
This is hard for me to judge
Our
because I
tastes are not
enjoyed
everybody
this.
else's taste.
Yeah.
The
You
three
know.
of us.
If it's so dry, why do the three of us love this kind of stuff so much?
Well, for me, it's sometimes I push back. Sometimes somebody learns something from me, although generally I'm learning more from them, I think. So I get to learn. I love that. I love being challenged. And frankly, I
It's
wish more people
boring if you're
did.
not- It's boring if you're not challenged, though.
Yeah. Well, and Nick and I spent all weekend challenging each other, and then promptly misunderstanding each other. But you know, it sometimes. But if you approach it with a little bit of graciousness and a little bit of calmness, two guys can work out just about anything. But if you're just up in your emotions and you can't let go and you're angry, look, if you're angry, you are not thinking. You're just reacting.
no.
Don't do that.
Now I'm pissed off
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, here we go.
because they had this big debate between the two of them. I didn't know what was going on, and I wasn't involved, and I didn't get to get in there and give it mine.
Yeah, that is true. You kind of sat that one out.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. All right,
Some of
anyways.
it was over my head.
Oh.
Or maybe I just chose not to engage. I don't know.
I think you just chose not to. So the shocking conclusion I think that we've reached tonight, and I do think it is shocking. This is actually not where I expected this to end up when we were talking on Sunday, is that not only is the red pill not amoral, the red pill's focus on data collection is an inherent moral good, at least
Bingo.
from the Christian worldview. Nick, have I summarized the stream?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely not where I expected it to go. I am grateful that it did, because that happens to be the belief set that I hold as well, and I try to express that in my own marriage, and I believe that it has benefited my marriage greatly to have done so. And that's the message that I want men to hear, particularly Christian men. This stuff not only works, it works well, and it is a moral good to defend your marriage using this information.
And some of it you
And
can even
three,
find in your own scriptures.
Yes.
but three Christian men can get together and have a discussion like this, all in good faith. Gee, we didn't even really quote any Bible verses and Bible thump on each other and resort to the Bible to prove I'm right and you're wrong. You know what? But our debate or discussion was thoroughly Christian to flesh out these issues using logic and reason and facts and observations. Is that something wrong with that, or should we bring out the Bible every time?
Oh, right. We need to make sure that we appropriately thump the Bible. That
Can we do that real quick?
If you need to, if we need to, okay, Nick, come on, bring it in, bring it in.
All right, all right. So, we should always weigh things with scripture, with reason, with the faculties God has given us. We should beware of sophistry and false philosophy. Like, oh yeah, Colossians 2 talks about that. It says, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. And 2 Corinthians 10 talks about pulling down strongholds, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Oh, so we're trying to say here's the data, and we need to have right thoughts and bring our actions with result to the data to the obedience of Christ. Oh, yeah, we kind of did that, didn't we?
Yep, that's what we did.
Okay. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Don't bait a pastor, because he's going to bring the Bible into it.
You did kind of do that, didn't you, Steve?
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
Totally. Oh yeah, he knew. Well,
I don't mind.
it was a perfect setup. Well, hey, guys, one of the things that I like to say about the stream, and I did steal it from somewhere else, but we're not here to tell you how to think. We're not here to tell you even what to think about, but we do try to give you things to think about. And this stream, I hope gives a lot of people some things to wrestle with, particularly in the Christian side of the community. But also to, honestly, to the non-Christian side, to the people trying to tear down the red pill. So if you guys, please share this video with anybody who's questioning the moral validity of the red pill. I think that this could help a lot of people. And, obviously if you have a pushback, we'd love to get a comment about it. And if you feel like you enjoyed the conversation, or if you think you got something out of it, you can drop a like too, just to let us know that you got something out of it. Although we actually kind of prefer comments so that we can keep talking. I mean, we are dry over here, and we do enjoy the talking. But yeah, if you know somebody who, I mean, the Nick's idea here that the red pill is not just not amoral, but is also a moral good. That one even caught me off guard a little bit. And so if it caught you off guard, please share it, because there's probably people who hadn't thought about it in the way that Nick did. particularly in the Christian mindset. So, yeah, please share, drop us a subscribe. Yeah.
All right, guys. Any closing thoughts? I think we pretty much covered it. Any other thoughts?
I'm good. This one's twisted my brain enough.
Yep. The Red Pill is a morally good data set for society. There you go. All right, guys. See you next time. Oh, and this Wednesday we have What is Love?
I already have a thumbnail idea for this one. Oh yeah, we're going there. It's Hadaway time.
So
that'll be fun too.
So yeah, look for that in your feeds if you guys are subscribed. So with that, we will see you all on Wednesday.
Later, guys.
Bye.